how do I break into the industry? The first thing, assuming that your craft is now ready, you've been going to class, you've been practicing in the other videos that you have seen me do maybe. I have discussed things, about how acting is built on muscle memory, it's built on overlearning, and we have to repeatedly practice so that when auditions come our way, we can go ahead and hit a home run. You're going to want to start small. It's kind of like swimming in the baby pool before you get into the big pool. The very first thing that you might want to explore doing is doing some student films. Student films are a great way for you to kind of get experience working on a set. It's a way for you to start not only getting experience, a way for you to start getting footage of you acting. Because eventually down the line, what's going to happen is you're going to be saying, I need to get an agent. An agent, most of the time, at least in Los Angeles, at least a quality agent is going to ask to see your demo.
How can actors improve their skills if they can't attend classes?
Reading about it, studying it, by watching documentaries or movies, that's all good stuff, but your body has to experience acting. Remember, the more that you think about acting kind of like you're going to the gym and you're training your muscles, the more it's going to make sense what I'm telling you. Look, if I go to the gym and I work out 3 to 4 to 5 days a week, that's great. But if I had a personal coach, obviously the gains are going to be significantly improved. If you can practice a scene and you can try to do this, 4 days a week, at least you're going to be, getting your body and your brain familiar with the craft and sort of reminding your body what it feels like to act. I think if you do this, you want to be on guard because it's going to be tempting to start watching yourself to kind of see how you're doing as you're acting. Furthermore, if you are an untrained actor and you film it and then you watch it, you could sort of start finding that you're editing yourself as you're acting it the next time. So it does take discipline to sort of restrain yourself, to watch yourself. Make sure that your picture actually covers your casting. In other words, if I am a guy who normally is going to play kind of like a quirky, maybe friend of the leading hero, I'm not necessarily going to want to make my headshot make me look like I'm the Marlboro Man, like some leading man hero if I look dorky. Also, when selecting a photographer, look, every city has their own sort of group of photographers. You're going to want to make sure that the photos that you use kind of suit the style that seems to be happening in your neck of the woods. I mean, I have students who I teach globally. Some people I teach in Argentina or in Spain. And I look at their pictures, and there is a slight different vibe from the headshots that I see in different countries versus here in Los Angeles. So just be aware and make sure you use a good one. The photo is your business card. It's your representation of you. So, I know sometimes it can be costly to go ahead and, hire a photographer, but it's the one investment that I would suggest that you don't necessarily cut corners. How do we figure out what kinds of parts we should go out for? One of the greatest things that I learned from my mentor, Don Richardson, was all about casting. It's so important to know this because, you may audition for something and not get the role, and then a lot of actors may beat themselves up over this unnecessarily. It's not to say that if you are auditioning for a leading man part and you look kind of like a character guy, it's not to say that you can't play that role. It's just simply that when you walk in the room, you may not even be a character, but people interpret that. Listen, Dustin Hoffman, for example, in the beginning of his career, he would audition for the parts that he looked appropriate for. And then after you become a success, after you have a fan base, then at that point you can go ahead and audition and probably book any kind of part you want. But if you understand your casting type at the beginning of the process, that's what you can start booking immediately. How do we know what our casting type is? Well, you've got to go to somebody you trust. My students come to me for that very reason. What kinds of parts should I audition for? When you can always talk to your friends or people that you meet, what do you think when I walk into the room? Do you think that I'm kind of a funny guy? Do you think that I'm kind of a leading man? Or am I the best friend? It's not even that you're that kind of a person. It's merely when you walk in the room and there's nothing that you can do about it. And embrace that. We have so many people who come to Los Angeles and they are scared to just be who they are. Tips to nail the parts with casting directors. You want to make good and risky choices. It's way better to make a choice that is risky but wrong than a safe choice that sucks. Remember, my policy, safety sucks. You want to be number one. Take a chance. If you're wrong, at least they know you're courageous.